Hello and welcome to Business Incorporated. I am Bisi Adebayo. Coming up on today's show, a week-long spring meetings of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund kicks off in Washington, D.C. And South African glass bottle maker Consol aims to raise up to $290 million via initial public offering. Plus, KPMG South Africa begins process of integrity and background checks of all partners. Well, let's start off with trading day in Africa, where it's mixed at intraday. Now, here in Nigeria, the index is in the negative terrain at intraday at 0.04% down. The market in South Africa is up 0.13%. In Egypt, the index is also 0.35% higher at noon. Kenya closed 0.76% negative on Friday. It's a similar story in the Middle East, where we also see a mixed bag of numbers at intraday. The Abu Dhabi index is 0.37% down at 4,682.27, while the Dubai index is also 0.33% lower at lunchtime. The Qatar and Saudi indices are up 0.72% and 0.81% each at intraday. And U.S. stocks tilted high on Monday as the market took news of U.S.-led strikes against the Syrian regime in its stride and turned its focus to a busy week for earnings. The Bank of America is expected to release its results before the bell, closely watched after the other four big banks' shares lost ground after their earnings reports on Fridays. Now you see the stock futures numbers there. Now the Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures rose 0.58% to 24,473, while the S&P 500 futures added 0.55% to reach 2,672. Nasdaq 100 futures also gained 0.55% to hit 6,676, while a clutch of economic data updates are lined up for release today, including retail sales and the Home Builders Index. Meanwhile, investors will hear from the first of several Federal Reserve speakers this week who may offer further clues on the timing of U.S. interest rate increases. And in Asia, the stocks closed mixed on Monday, with markets in Greater China lagging the rest of the region as investors digested geopolitical tensions on the back of U.S.-led airstrikes on Syria last week. Japan's Nikkei 225 rose 0.26%. to close at 21,835.53 as the broader topics added 0.4%. In South Korea, the benchmark Kospi dipped into negative territory before closing higher by 0.1% at 2,457.49. Meanwhile, Australia's S&P ASX 200 tacked on 0.21%, ending at 5,841.3, with gains led by energy and utilities stocks. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index slid 1.75% as financials also and technology names took a hit. On the mainland, the Shanghai Composite lost 1.53% to close at 3,110.75, and the Shenzhen Composite eased 0.52% to end at 1,824.77. Well, let's see how the markets in Europe perform now, and the edge lower on Monday morning as investors monitored the fallout from the elevated Middle East tensions and the imminent prospect of fresh U.S. sanctions against Russia. Well, let's get more on this from my colleague Daniel Koop, who's standing by from the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. It's good to see you, Daniel.
Hi, BZ. How are things over there in Lagos today?
Very well, thank you, Daniel. Now, let's begin with the global markets, with treading some water today as the U.S.-Russian sanctions over the Syrian conflict continue to weigh on investors' minds. Are we in for another week of wild volatility?
Well, let's look at the chart here. Volatility is still a very big topic here at the moment. Syria, the tension between the United States and Russia, all of that is very much on investors' mind, even though today they are a little bit relieved. Of course, we had those airstrikes happening on Saturday on Syria, but they were not as bad and also did not target any Russian troops. That's what many investors here were very worried about. So far, the trading day here in Frankfurt, at least, is we're a little bit losing, but not dramatic losses that some investors were already predicting when potential airstrikes would be happening. Let's have a look right now. The blue chip index DAX at a level of 12,434 points at the moment. That's a slight loss of 0.7%. But yes, we have to remember also last week when just one tweet of Donald Trump really made the shares here at the blue chip index DAX and also at other markets around Europe falling and sometimes going up. So volatility will remain one of the biggest issues certainly this week.
Now, the resignation of the ad giant WPP CEO Sorel is top on corporate news today. Take a look at the advertising sector shares and index for us and see if there's a Sorel contagion going on right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Sorel is considered one of the most influential people in the media business, mostly in the advertising and marketing business. But he recently faced a board investigation into his behavior. It seems that many employees were very frustrated about his behavior, and then he was facing very strong headwinds trying to navigate his company through a grim of advertising marketplace. So, yeah, we have to see how all of this unfolds. In general, let me tell you that the entire advertisement industry is very much overshadowed also because of those data security issues, for example, linked to Facebook. Remember that Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, was in front of the Congress and in front of the Senate last week, making very big promises to Facebook users, saying that their personal data from now on will be more important and that for Facebook it's not anymore that important how much they make with advertisement companies. All of this, that's what investors are also telling me, could have a very negative impact for the entire advertisement industry, because the business model of Facebook, of course, that's also not going to change, is to get our data and to make money with those advertisement companies that then provide us with individualized adverts. So if all of this should get more complicated in the future, that apps, for example, won't have any more that much access related to our data, this of course could hurt the entire industry. And yes, that's what many people are fearing, that this could have a negative impact. And as a result, also shares of big advertisement companies didn't really have such a good and easy time throughout the last weeks when all these data scandal issues of Facebook was coming up.
Daniel, let's chat to money and sports as Manchester City won the Premier League at the weekend. Is there a hangover of this football fiesta today at the marketplace?
Well, let me tell you something, Vizi. I'm originally from Brazil, as you might know. I was born there, but I have no idea about soccer at all. So let me tell you that. But I can tell you that the market is not having a fiesta today at all. As I was just saying, that the U.S. sanctions over Syria, this entire conflict is a very big topic here. And also the worldwide economy, because with this political tension that we have had throughout the last weeks and months, some investors now feel that maybe the entire global economy could be harmed because all of this. Now on Wednesday, this is going to be the most interesting event here from the investors' perspective in Europe. We'll be getting the latest GDP figures from China. Remember that China wants to keep their GDP at a record level of 6.5% annually growth. That's a lot. So investors will be having a very close look if those GDP numbers of China will still be as strong or maybe are also suffering. This is always a very good indication how the entire global economy is doing. Let me also tell you just before the end of our crossing that last week on Friday, safe haven were very much on demand as investors were very nervous because of this conflict of the United States with Syria involving also Russia. Those safe haven like gold and also the oil price today is not anymore that much on demand.
Thanks, Daniel. I'll see you again tomorrow.